Welcome to Soccer in 60, presented by the Empire Strykers. Get ready for your weekly look at all the pro soccer teams in Greater Los Angeles. We've got all the news and analysis you need, from LAFC and the LA Galaxy to the Empire Strykers, Angel City FC, and Orange County Soccer Club. Now, buckle up and enjoy Soccer in 60.
Welcome indeed to the fastest paced soccer show in SoCal. This is Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System, covering all the week's news, highlights, and more from LAFC, the Galaxy, Angel City, Orange County Soccer Club, and of course, the Major Arena Soccer League's own Empire Strykers, who kick their season off this Friday, the 12th. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, J.R. Liebert, affectionately known as The Scarf. Thanks so much for joining me on another absolutely jam-packed episode. And you can see the two-headed monster I have above me here on the screen, my co-host of Defenders of the Bank, the LAFC podcast your mother warned you about, and the voice of the Empire Strykers himself, one Christian Philly Philemon.
Thrilled to be back. You know how much I love chopping it up with you boys. If talking footy burned calories, I'd be shredded. But either way, I'm pumped to be here.
Love to have you here. And of course, Orange County Soccer Club super fan extraordinaire, the man, the myth, the legend, one Timmy Kolach. Tim, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks, baby. Good to be with you as always, Scarf. Great to see you in person. Well, sort of, Philly.
Always good to have the two of you guys on. We want to remember our good friends at Omnitrans here at the top of the episode. In partnership with the Empire Strykers, experience the thrill of game day with Omnitrans. Be in the heart of the action at Toyota Arena and let Omnitrans take care of the ride. Simply download the Transit app to catch your bus and enjoy a stress-free trip to cheer on the Strykers. Don't miss out on all the excitement and make every moment count at Toyota Arena. Ride with Omnitrans to your next Empire Strykers game. We've got a fantastic interview with Dax McCarty, the Apple TV commentator, and of course, MLS legend of over 400, almost 500 matches in Major League Soccer. He is incredible, and a great interview with Gunner and Philly. And before we get to Galaxy talk, just want to make sure we shout out our technical director, Christian Giordano, who does a fantastic job on this show day in and day out. We love you, Christian. We didn't forget about you, my friend. Again, thank you for all you do. Let's get into some Galaxy talk. And the big news was that the CONCACAF Champions Cup draw has been held. It was held December 9th. And the Galaxy, unlike LAFC, Galaxy found out relatively early in the process who their opponent would be. And it's a team, of course, we are all familiar with. Panamanian side, Sporting San Miguelito, currently ranked 63rd in the CONCACAF rankings. The winner of that two-match tie will then go on to play 66th ranked Mount Pleasant FA of Jamaica. I got to talk to Philly first about this one. Philly, real quick, you spent a lot of time in Europe. You're a very well-traveled man. If you're a Galaxy supporter, you get to start making trips or planning on making trips to Panama and Jamaica. Not a bad draw if you're a supporter of the Galaxy.
No, not a bad draw at all. But I mean, I can't say there's going to be too many people that are that familiar with San Miguelito. I mean, we're older. All three of us are older than that club is, which is kind of wild in the grand scheme of things. But I mean, going to Panama than going to Jamaica. Look, I'd rather be going to places like that than Canada. I was thinking during the draw with LAFC, I really thought they would pull Forge. Nothing like taking a trip to Canada in the wintertime. But luckily, the Galaxy, nor LAFC for that matter, who we talk about on the show, have to make that worry. Sounds good to me. I mean, start up your inner Van Halen, baby. Panama it is.
There you go. And Tim, in the most updated CONCACAF club rankings, Galaxy sit 18th. And of course, all but one of the top 35 are either from Liga MX or Major League Soccer. But you got to think, if you're a Galaxy supporter, Tim, a fantastic draw could not have shaped itself out better for these first two rounds, drawing number 63 and 66, respectively, in the rankings.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Scarf. And as once famous round mound of rebounds said, I don't know where Angola is, but Angola's in trouble. Not a lot of us know where San Miguelito is, but San Miguelito's in trouble.
Charles Barkley, 92 Olympics, talking about Angola. That's a beautiful snippet right there. I remember that one vividly. I am not a role model.
Anytime we can get a shout out to the Dream Team in 1992 on a soccer podcast, I absolutely love it.
The Dream Team was only 3 years younger than San Miguelito, by the way.
There you go. Philly, let me ask you, speaking of which, one big question for the Galaxy heading into this, and we've got a little bit of time, is will Ricky Pooch be ready by the time this first match rolls around? And I guess the follow-up question to you, Philly, I'll ask two at once. Will it matter?
It will, 100%. I mean, that kid is highly important. He's the linchpin of that entire attack. The entire attack goes through that midfield, through him forward. If he can even have a 75% of the speed he had the year prior to him tearing up that knee in the Western Conference Finals, I think the Galaxy will be okay. I'm not a doctor, nor do I get paid to be a doctor. The only thing I have a PhD in is personality. And yes, I did steal that from some other commentary, but I do. I mean, he was training with the Galaxy towards the end of the season, from what I was told. At this point, with just a couple more months, yeah, he's going to be ready to go. And for CONCACAF, he needs to be ready to go because, as I've mentioned a couple times on this pod, we're all going to end up with egg on our face. The Galaxy is going to be a contender. Dax McCarty said it himself on the interview that we did with him earlier. And this path right here, potentially, I say quarterfinals at the very least for them.
Yeah, and you said Dax McCarty mentioned it in the interview. Let's head to that Dax McCarty interview right now. It's Philly, it's Gunner, and it's MLS legend and Apple TV commentator Dax McCarty right now.
Our guest is an American soccer icon and an analyst with Apple TV's MLS Season Pass. Known for his textbook professionalism, he was still starting games as a 37-year-old in the final season of a 19-year MLS career that saw him make 488 appearances, the third most in MLS history. He featured most prominently for Dallas, Chicago, Nashville, and the New York Red Bulls, with whom he earned a supporter shield along with MLS All-Star and Best 11 honors. We're so thrilled to have with us former U.S. international and Olympian, Mr. Dax McCarty. Dax, welcome to Soccer in 60.
I already love you guys. You're one of my favorite shows. That introduction, go ahead and send that introduction to anyone else who wants to have me on their show, because I'll take that all day. Thank you.
Absolutely. As long as you can use my audio clip, maybe not my face the radio, but it's all yours. All good. Dax, certainly appreciate your time. Let's get right into things. We'll start with the Galaxy. A question that we recently asked your colleague, Mo Edu, and I'm really curious what your answer will be. Greg Vanney has made the playoffs 7 times in 9 seasons. Yep. He's a 2-time MLS champ as a coach, a Supporters Shield winner, and a former MLS and CONCACAF coach of the year. Now, how do you feel 2025 should factor into his legacy? And should we just look past it? Is it an anomaly? Should his job have been on the line at some point? Help us make sense of this past year for the Galaxy.
Yeah, this past year for the Galaxy was a head scratcher. No question about it. I think that there were areas that Greg could have done a little bit more for his team, but I also think that Greg was kind of a victim of a little bit unfortunate circumstances going into the season. We all know about the Ricky Pooch injury. That was a massive backbreaker for them going into that year. And so we all know about the salary cap issues they had after a great MLS Cup win in 2024. But as far as how it factors into his legacy, I think it will be minimal, to be completely honest with you. I think there were question marks in the summer about his job security, and those were squashed once he re-signed and got that new deal. So I think at the point we're at in Major League Soccer, with where MLS is in their evolution and their journey, I don't think it should really matter about the things you've accomplished in your past or the legacy that you have. I think it should just matter about what the future holds and your relationship with your players and your sporting director, and if they think you can get out of that rut and move them forward. With Greg, I'll go on record. I have zero doubt that the LA Galaxy will be significantly better than they were last year. Part of that is because you get Ricky Pooch back. Another part of that is because I think Greg Vanney's a great coach. And I think that this past season was an anomaly for his career. And so I know Greg. I like Greg. He was a former teammate of mine way back in the day with FC Dallas. But when I'm judging how the season went for him and for the LA Galaxy, he certainly has to take some criticism, because there were times during the season where I thought he could have helped his team a little bit more. He didn't make anything easier with the goalkeeper situation. I think that then permeated into the back line, right? Because the back line was atrocious all season long. I think a coach can help a back line with tactics to try to be a little bit more secure and a little bit more compact. But I'm absolutely willing to give Greg a pass. He was given a vote of confidence with the new contract, and I've got zero doubts. I'll go on record right now and say the LA Galaxy will not only make the playoffs next year, but they're going to be challenging for top of the Western Conference.
Interesting. Yeah. So while we're taking stock of the Galaxy, let's tackle another big question. We've heard a lot about fans having issues over the course of the past season, taking issue with the club declining to respond to the ICE raids here in LA. In fact, we saw fan protests throughout the season, some disappointing crowds actually at Dignity Health Sports Park. Now we learned that MLS has just announced the Galaxy as its 2025 Community Impact Club of the Year. And I wonder, how do you square the two? And does it seem to you that the Galaxy might have a long-term problem with local support and the local community?
Potentially. It's hard for me to speak to the relationship between the front office and the supporters when I'm not in it day to day. And I quite frankly don't see it day to day. But the one thing I would say is that, in my opinion, a lot of people say that, sports and politics, don't mix the two, but I think they're intertwined. I do. And so I personally love it when a club takes a stand, and if a group of supporters is being marginalized or is being unfairly attacked, then yeah, I love it when clubs come out and show support. But I don't think it is a prerequisite or a necessary measure for clubs to have to do that, because in this day and age, I am a very balanced person. I don't consider myself, far right, far left. I like to think of myself as a balanced person who I think of reasonable solutions can really be the, solution to a lot of issues that we have in society today. And a sports team absolutely has a place in the political conversation. I don't care what anyone says. I think that when you're intertwined in your community, then it is incumbent upon you to speak up about issues that you are passionate about and that matter to you. And so what the LA Galaxy decide to speak on and what they decide to do in terms of what their supporters are saying or the supporters are showing in the stands, well, that's a decision for the front office to make. And I don't know anything about a long-term impact or a short-term impact. I just know that you want to support your fans and you want to make sure that your fans feel supported and loved. Some teams do that better than others, but at the end of the day, the Galaxy won that award for a reason. And so I think there's probably 50 or 60 other community initiatives that you can point to that the Galaxy are doing to create a positive influence in that Los Angeles area. And so it's a really obviously difficult question to answer. I think there's context and nuance required, but hopefully we can start to see a little bit of a shift between these raids, and maybe they start to scale back a little bit so people can feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Now I apologize for holding your feet to the fire early here. Right
no problem.
But let's actually talk on the field for a second with the Galaxy, right? Obviously they had a miserable start last season. They kind of came around and went by my count 11-8-6 in their final 25 games of the year. Yep. You've already touched on it and said, I put me on the record, they're going to be a lot better next season. I wonder how close you feel they are to being an MLS Cup contender again, and what do you see as their most urgent roster needs this offseason?
This is Major League Soccer, guys. I think of a couple signings and a good start to the season, a healthy Ricky Puig, they would be right back in the conversation for me. They already proved in 2024, no more than 12 months ago, that they are a team that can absolutely compete with the best in Major League Soccer. And they had the unfortunate Ricky Puig injury. They had a back line that completely capitulated and fell off a cliff. And then you couple that with your high-priced designated player wingers who regressed. And, Joseph Paintsel and Gabriel Peck, they regressed. When you don't have a Dejan Joveljic to maybe carry the load when your wingers aren't scoring goals, it becomes a very difficult proposition. So the LA Galaxy needs to figure out, is Nascimento a cornerstone piece that we see him scoring 15 to 20 goals a year? I think the jury is still out on that. I would like to see them add another high-level, high-caliber number 9. I'm not really sure what was going on with Christian Ramirez toward the end of the season. It seemed like he was dealing with some injury issues. It seemed like he was out of favor. But if Ramirez isn't the guy and if Nascimento is not the guy, well, then you need to add another piece to that attack. And now you have all 3 designated players spoken for. So that's going to potentially have to be a trade within the league, maybe a free agent signing or a TAM signing from elsewhere that you think can raise your level. But the other part of it, guys, is that back line has to improve. I would like to see a step forward from Mitrovic, who he took his lumps early in the season, but I see a lot of potential in him, which is why I felt like Greg Vanney, once he made the decision to bench John McCarthy and go with Mitrovic, I think he should have stuck with him through all the mistakes and through the thick and thin, because that's a young goalkeeper. But you need additions on the back line. I think they need at least 2 new center backs. I would love to see them make a play for Walker Zimmerman, if possible, potentially a play for Henry Kessler, depending on fit and depending on asking price. But that back line has to improve. No question about it, because you can't concede the amount of goals that the LA Galaxy conceded and think that you're going to be competitive in Major League Soccer. It's just fundamentally not possible. So certainly a lot of work to do for the Galaxy along all 3 lines. Look, if you hold my feet to the fire, I would say they probably need to add another midfielder as well. But I'm banking on that front office to get it right. I'm banking on Greg Vanney to help this team bounce back.
Let's look at a couple of specific positions. I mean, we've already been talking about it a little bit, but there's been some unsubstantiated rumors that the club might be shopping homegrown right back Mauricio Cuevas, who showed us a lot of promise this past season. If there's validity, to the rumors, what are your thoughts on the possibility of Cuevas leaving, especially when you contrast it with fellow right back Mickey Amane, who has had a lot more experience, but who's also has a much bigger contract than Cuevas?
Yeah, on the surface, I don't like it, but guess what, guys? Everybody's got a price. And Cuevas, in his, I would call it limited time on the field, he showed a lot of promise, and he showed a lot of qualities that a lot of teams really like. He's got a great engine. I love his mentality. He's a really hard-nosed defender who takes pride in 1v1 defending. I always felt like the Galaxy were more secure defensively when he was on the field, but it's also his ability to get forward. I remember a lot of, I don't know exactly how many, but I remember 3 or 4 really good crosses that led to assists and set up other teammates in really good positions to score goals. So I think he's got a lot of quality. I think he's got a lot of good qualities that make a good fullback in Major League Soccer. Reminded me a little bit of Julian Araujo, all right, before his big move overseas. And so if teams see that potential in him, while he still maybe isn't a household name and maybe they could get him for a little cheaper because they see room to grow, then I think the LA Galaxy have to determine if Yamane is going to have a season like he did in 2024 or if Yamane is going to have a season like he did in 2025. Because if he plays like he did in 24, then he can absolutely be a starting fullback in Major League Soccer. But he had a big regression in 25, which is why Cuevas played so much. So it depends on the price, depends on the situation. I would love to see Cuevas stay and try to develop a little bit more under Greg Vanney into a player who can become an everyday starter at right fullback. But everyone's got a price.
Shout out to the great $1 million man, Ted DiBiase, with that one. Got a little cackle off that. Now, Dax, let's move about 13 or so miles north up the 110 for the other club in LA, LAFC. Now, recently, the Black and Gold announced that it had exercised options on Canadian national midfielder Mathieu Choinière, signing the 2-time MLS All-Star from their club, Switzerland, from Swiss club, Grasshopper, through 2028 with an option for 29. Given what you saw from Choinière after his arrival, what are your thoughts on this move? What boxes does he check for LAFC?
I think it's a good move. I don't imagine that the permanent purchase price was all that expensive. I like Choinière. I think he's a good player. I think he's a very good MLS number 8. But the issue I see with LAFC right now, and Mark Dos Santos, who will be taking over, is what is the best way forward structurally? Is it with 4 defenders? Is it with 5? Do you want to play with wingbacks, or do you want to play and go back to a traditional more 4-3-3 where you get Denny Bouanga on the left, Son Heung-min in the middle, and then do you sign a high-level right winger to kind of complement them? Are you okay with Ordaz and David Martinez, or do you sign a number 10? So I think LAFC's got a lot of question marks, but as it pertains to Choinière, he fits the role of a lot of different players on their roster already. If you were to tell me that Frankie Amaya, Choinière, Delgado, Tillman were all kind of the same type of player, then I would sign on the dotted line and say, yes, I agree with that 100%. They're all box-to-box number 8s who are good on the ball and who have a lot of quality, but they're not top-level defensive midfielders. They're not top-level attacking midfielders. They're just good soccer players, and they fill a role. So how many of those guys can you actually have on the field? Because I think LAFC, they need a defensive midfielder because Igor Jesus, his injury is going to carry him into the summer, and they need an attacking midfielder who's going to help take some of the creative burden off of Bouanga and Son. We've seen what they're capable of. We know that they're going to light defenses on fire, but when you need to unlock a backline, when you need a player who can maybe pick a lock and help Son Heung-min and Denny Bouanga stay higher up the field, they really don't have that player. I really like Andy Moran. I think he has that ability, but at the same time, they just need to figure out, and Marc Dos Santos needs to figure out how to set this team up structurally so you get your best players on the field all at the same time, and there's some balance on both sides of the ball. But I like Choinière, and I think he's going to add a lot going forward the next couple seasons.
Mm-hmm. Now let's quickly look back at 2025 for LAFC. When we had Keith Costigan on prior to the playoff exit at Vancouver, he told us that after, somewhat disappointing finishes in the Champions Cup, in Leagues Cup, in the Club World Cup, lifting MLS Cup was almost a must to salvage the season for LAFC. So I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
No
would
worries.
you say that 2025 was overall a failure for LAFC?
I think failure is way too strong of a word. I've gone back and forth on this, but if you were to sell every club in Major League Soccer the chance to win 4 trophies, to qualify for the Club World Cup, which brings eyeballs and a financial windfall that not a lot of clubs get to experience. If you were to tell me that they would electrify Major League Soccer in the second half of the season, qualify in a top 4 playoff spot with a home playoff game, and play against an eventual MLS Cup finalist who lost, I would say to call the season a failure is very, very harsh. But I would go massive disappointment, because when you are, in my opinion, a super club, and so people will argue there's not a lot of super clubs in MLS, but Inter Miami, LAFC, and to a certain extent, the Seattle Sounders, but for different reasons. When you set the bar so high every single season, and when you are expected to win trophies every single season and you don't, it has to be looked at as a disappointment. But failure, that is way too strong of a word. The LA Galaxy season, I don't care that they qualified for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. That was a failure of a season. A complete failure of a season where instead of challenging for trophies, you're challenging for the wooden spoon all year. That's a failure. What LAFC just experienced this year is not a failure, but it is a disappointment, because they have set the bar so high that when they don't win a trophy, I feel like I expected more. And I think the supporters would probably feel the same way.
Right. Now, since you mentioned a name earlier that we obviously have to talk about, Marc Dos Santos, right? Since the departure of Cherundolo, LAFC has announced that former assistant Marc Dos Santos will be the head coach in 2026, meaning the club went with, you could argue, consistency over a big, shiny name, possibly, right? So given Cherundolo was a bit of a polarizing figure here in LA, with some fans pretty aggressively voicing their dislike of his pragmatic approach at times, his in-game management decisions, what's your take on the Dos Santos hire?
Yeah, just a quick word on Cherundolo for the fans that might not have liked his tactics or how he played. How many trophies did he win in 4 years? 4 trophies in 4 years, or whatever it was. 5 trophies and significantly more finals. It might only be 3 or 4 trophies, but a double, a Supporter Shield MLS Cup double in your first year. It was always going to be difficult to live up to that. But Steve Cherundolo and LAFC, they were constantly fighting for trophies. And so I get the argument of I didn't love watching his teams play, because I'll co-sign on that. There were some moments where I thought Cherundolo can do more with this roster. I want to see more with this roster. But any team in Major League Soccer, any CSO in Major League Soccer would sign up for the 4-year run that Steve Cherundolo just had. You're a little bit spoiled if you're frustrated with Steve Cherundolo and what he brought to that team. But Marc Dos Santos, the hire, this is nothing against Marc Dos Santos. I think he could be a fantastic coach. But for me, it's underwhelming. That's the word that comes to mind. And only because John Thorrington, when he spoke after Steve Cherundolo was going to leave, he spoke about the international exposure and candidates that were lining up to take the job and to interview for the job with LAFC. And we are talking about some of the best coaches in the world that were free agents, guys with insane pedigrees, right? Those were his words, not mine. Like he really sold it like LAFC could be one of the best coaching jobs available in world football. And so when you say that, and then when you actually end up going with an internal hire who doesn't have a great history and track record of success as a head coach, I can understand why people feel disappointed or underwhelmed by that. But I'll also give the caveat that Marc Dos Santos is very highly thought of and very highly regarded in LAFC. You don't make that hire if you don't talk to Sun Heung-min and Denny Bwanga about his competency as a coach and get their full approval. You don't make that hire if you don't trust that he will be able to take you to the promised land. And also, something that LAFC has built that I envy and I respect a ton is the fact that they have a club that they don't think that they need a coach who's going to necessarily raise their ceiling. They just need a coach who's going to come in and keep the floor high with the chance to challenge for trophies, because they know that they are going to be able to sign the best players. That to me is a club that has an ethos and a model, and maybe they don't want a coach to be more important than the overall club direction and the club identity. And so if Marc Dos Santos has been involved in that club identity and that ethos for multiple years, and he's been learning and he's been developing some different ideas to Cherundolo that can maybe take this team forward, and he sold that to John Thorrington, well, then you got to give him a chance, because I think that he's going to do very well given the fact that he knows what the club needs to succeed.
Couldn't agree with you more, and perhaps it marries the best qualities of Bradley Ball and Dolo Ball, but we
hopefully
shall see in the end of the day. Dax, to be respectful for your time, I just got one last question. We haven't really touched on this with the Galaxy, so I want to touch on it with LAFC Champions Cup. LAFC is going to be hopping a flight to Honduras with the possibility of going back to Costa Rica to take on Alajuelense in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. What are your thoughts on how the draw went for LAFC?
Yeah, I think it's a good draw for LAFC. This is no disrespect to any other nation or country, but if you avoid MLS teams and Liga MX teams early on in the competition, I think the draw goes very well for you. And that's not to say that these games aren't going to be challenging, but you go down to Honduras or Costa Rica and you're able to get a result, whether that's a scrappy draw, maybe you squeak out a 1-0 win. You're going to be able to go home and completely dominate against these teams that, quite frankly, have lower budgets and they don't spend as much money. And they have young players that are trying to prove themselves. They have young players that a lot of the time want to come and play in Major League Soccer. So it's a great draw for LAFC. And I can't remember who the Galaxy got. Remind me again who the Galaxy got.
The Galaxy got a Panamanian team.
Okay, so
Sporting San Miguelito.
So I think the draw is I think pretty much ideal for both LA teams. And look, the CONCACAF Champions Cup is a way into the Club World Cup. It's a way to win a trophy. It is the most prestigious trophy in the region. And so to get a good draw early in the season where you're not really fully fit and your team isn't in form and firing on all cylinders, much, much better to avoid the MLS teams and the Liga MX teams until later on in the competition. I think all the Liga MX and MLS teams should be going after this competition in 2026 because there's a lot of quality.
Selfishly, I'm happy with the draw because I'd rather be going to Central America than, Forge in
There you
February.
go.
But that's just me. Dax, again, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Congratulations, by the way, on the successful transition from player to journalist and media mogul, so to speak. So great job on MLS season pass. We're looking forward to seeing you next season as well.
I appreciate you guys. Philly, I appreciate you, man. I'm going full confidence now forward in this offseason, man. I appreciate that.
Not a problem at all.
Cheers.
You enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Cheers, fellas.
Thank you so much, Dax. Appreciate it.
Yep. Wait, do you guys want me to leave this open, or am I good to close out?
It always says to leave it open, but you can close it out. It doesn't really matter.
Can I just say leave the studio, and then I'll leave the screen?
Yeah, you can just leave the studio. And by the way, sorry for putting myself on the screen. Luckily we're mostly radio, but at some point something happened where it was all me, and that was not on purpose. I was.
Just taking stabs at me saying I'm ugly. I'm gonna have to have a word with him, honestly.
See you guys. Thanks a lot.
Take it easy, Dax.
Appreciate it, man.
And there you have it. Talked quite a bit of Galaxy, quite a bit of LAFC as well. And that's, I think, what we are going to head to next. And a lot of news coming out of LAFC. And of course, the biggest news of it all is that Mark Dos Santos will be the one to succeed Steve Cherundolo as head man at LAFC. A quick bio for Mark Dos Santos. He was an assistant under both Bob Bradley in 2018 for LAFC and these last 4 seasons under Steve Cherundolo. He left LAFC to be the head man at Vancouver from 2019 through most of 2021 until they lost to a Canadian Premier League team in the Canadian Championship. He's also been a head coach many other times before. Montreal Impact before in MLS, Ottawa Fury, Philly's favorite NASL team, Swope Park Rangers, who are essentially Sporting Kansas City too, the San Francisco Deltas in the NASL. In fact, 284 matches as a head man before he takes this job. Look, Philly, we'll start with you real quick. LAFC Twitter wanted the big name, the big splash, and they didn't get it. Let me get your thoughts on inserting Mark Dos Santos into the head seat.
And clearly the people that pay attention to LAFC haven't been paying attention since day one. While John Thorrington is still running things, there aren't going to be that many surprises because LAFC from the very beginning indicated that they had a set way they wanted to be and a set way that they wanted to play. Obviously, they started out with Bob, that attacking blend of football. They still stuck within the John Thorrington tree of coaches. And Mark Dos Santos obviously has that lineage going back to the very beginning of the club. I get it. Fans for the black and gold aren't going to care that Dos Santos was a 2-time NASL Coach of the Year with the San Francisco Deltas. They're not going to care that he's got an overall record of 146, 118, and 88. But the fact of the matter is, he is the right man for the job at this current moment in time. For that splashy head coach to come in, John Thorrington is going to have to be somewhere else because while he's there, he's going to doodle things his way, not wanting to mess with the system. And look, a high-profile coach would probably try to be a lot more domineering within whatever culture and creation that LAFC has had. This should not come as a surprise. I would say the worst-kept secret in the LAFC locker room. And at the same time, going back to the point that Dax just made on the interview, do you not think that Sonny and Bawanga and some of the other players weren't consulted about this? Of course they were. Absolutely they were. He put himself in that position, Mark Dos Santos, because he worked his tail off and he deserves a job. This may be a hot take and I might catch a lot of hate for it, but when I see people saying Dolo 2.0, to me that says you're a moron because actually it's Bradley Dolo 2.0.
Yeah, and listen, you're absolutely right, Philly. It is John Thorrington's team first, and he's the one that gets guys like Sonny and Bawanga to sign off on Mark Dos Santos. Tim, we talked a lot about the CONCACAF Champions Cup draw for the Galaxy. Well, LAFC got to figure out their fate as well. It was 65th ranked Real España of Honduras, avoiding CD Olimpia, the better of the Honduran teams. In fact, Real España ranked 4th from Honduras in the rankings for CONCACAF Champions Cup. So when you see that draw, of course, we would then play potentially Alajuelense next, who we do have a history of in CONCACAF Champions Cup. Your thoughts on the draw of Real España for LAFC?
I think it's actually a very good draw. I think they're going to be a little better team than what people are expecting. I do think that it's going to be on aggregate. It will be 6-1, 6-2 for LAFC. I think it's going to be, they'll go down. It'll be 3-1 at home, 4-0 at home. And then they'll get a goal on the away match. But I think this is a very good draw. It'll be good competition, but I think the real start comes when they get to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, heading over to Costa Rica to play Alajuelense, who is the only team, by the way, inside the top 35 in CONCACAF, outside of Liga MX and MLS. That's who they'll draw after that. Just also want to mention Hugo Lloris back in the fold next season as a 39-year-old goalkeeper for LAFC, as well as Matthew Chonier, who exercised that permanent transfer option from Grasshopper. Two big names that will likely feature quite a bit in that CONCACAF Champions Cup run for LAFC. Someone who features quite a bit on our show is our good friends over at National Core. National Core is one of the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developers and a proud sponsor of your MASL team, the Empire Strykers. At National Core, they believe that soccer has the power to transform lives just like they do. They believe in building strong communities on and off the field. And to learn more about National Core and their mission, head on over to nationalcore.org. It's been a long time coming. It seems like for 6 months, we have talked about the home opener, December 12th, Toyota Arena, 7:05 p.m. against the hated San Diego Strykers. And finally, we are just a couple of days away. We are lucky enough to have the voice of the Empire Strykers here with us. That is one Christian Philly. Philemon, let me ask you first, Philly, that huge win down south, 5-4. Robert Palmer, Berto gets Defensive Player of the Week, 8 blocks, holding Tavoy Morgan, holding Nick Pereira off the score sheet. An incredible performance. Friday is that home opener at Toyota Arena. But what is the team still feeling after that fantastic win down in Oceanside?
I mean, great, of course, vindicated in a lot of ways. I mean, it was like a 15-game losing streak going back to February of 2023 when they last won 10-4 at the Arena. I was on that call. I remember that game vividly. Frank Tayu had 4 goals in that game. Justin Stinson a couple within his own right. I mean, it feels really good. I mean, they were the first team ever to defeat the Strykers in Front Wave Arena. A perfect 15-0 campaign in their own building got put to an end. And you said it, took the words right out of my mouth. Obviously, the scoring was there. We see Munir Olami, which, interestingly enough, 2 years back-to-back being the first striker to score a goal to start the season. He capped it off with that brace off that great attempt by Brian Orozco, but it was Berto Palmer's defense on Tavoy and Nick Pereira. Both players just outstanding. Pereira, an MVP in this league, top 10 in so many categories. Tavoy Morgan has been one of the most lethal target forwards in MASL ever since he dipped from the Harrisburg Heat going to the San Diego Strykers during that 2021 campaign. It feels really good. And I mean, I think the league got put on attention right there, but then the Strykers go ahead and have a repeat performance, not scoring for the final 30 minutes of their second home game against the Milwaukee Wave. Interesting set of results, but what I know about San Diego is you don't count them out.
Yeah, Philly, before we head on over to Tim, because I got a couple questions for you too, Timmy, I just want to mention, also, Craig Childs announcing his retirement at the end of the season ahead of this game, something that San Diego Strykers faithful are likely sad about. But let me ask you now, everywhere that San Diego Strykers go, they're the de facto favorite, I think, for the championship this season. But you've got all the legends on one side, Craig Childs, Tavoy Morgan, Nick Pereira. Let's not forget, Philly, Marco Fabian, the Mexican legend, the gold medalist, scored for Empire Strykers in that match. Let me ask you, what do they have to do to get Marco Fabian and Justin Stinson going in this, the second leg of their home versus home against San Diego?
I mean, the thing is, either one of those players are going to draw a lot of attention. And when they draw attention, that's going to leave the other one wide open. And last season, they had a few more players that were able to find the back of the net. Munir Alami, who knows, might be on the verge of having a breakout year. Then they bring in other players like Ant Powell, who's a pretty big kid within his own right, who is powerful as the forward. Steven Chavez also had a great year scoring with the Texas Outlaws. I mean, any which way you run it, the Strykers are a young team and can absolutely run with every team in this league, if not the best of them. Where they do need to be careful, though, is getting caught on the counter. Because I do believe that San Diego is going to try to absorb as much as they can and beat Empire the same way they've beaten them time and time again, and that's with Orozco or Gomez outside of their zone and beating them that way. But if they're going to try to attempt to run with the Strykers, a track meet, they're going to get obliterated.
Yeah, Tim, let me ask you, Philly mentioned goalkeeper Brian Orozco, and we talked about his performance last match. He appears to be ready for his moment in the spotlight. With a bit of pressure on him coming into this season, all he did was notch a 77% save percentage against San Diego in Oceanside. And oh, by the way, if you didn't see him all over SportsCenter a couple of times last year, he had another big moment offensively. You know how Coach Onua Obasi loves to move his keepers up offensively. The game-winning assist to Munir Alami, I believe, on that header to close it out. What are you looking for from what has become a two-headed monster in keeper at times between Brian Orozco and Brandon Gomez?
Well, I'm looking for him to dive into Onua Obasi's system even more so. They really started to figure it out towards the end of last season. And as everybody saw on the very first game of the season against the Strykers, that pushing up of the goalkeeper, which is not something that's normally done. It's normally done in like the TST tournament where these small-sided, there could be that thing. But with Coach Obasi's thought process of this to always have an extra attacker. So it's always 6-on-5 plus the defending team's goalkeeper. It puts so much more pressure on the defense. And Philly mentioned it, the Strykers will try and break it by getting it and clearing the ball high and then having one of their guys sprint. But the Strykers, again, Philly mentioned this too, the Strykers just don't have the speed to keep up with what's going on with the Strykers. The Strykers have got so much speed. They brought in a bunch of younger guys this season, and they are going to racetrack people. And it's going to be fun to watch, and especially this game because they have had time off since the season opener. They've had a full 2 weeks off. So I expect that the Strykers are going to come in and racetrack them again. It'll be a boat race, and it's going to be fun to watch, and I'm going to listen to Philly on the call while I'm inside the arena.
Yeah, look, that's actually my next question. While you're inside the arena, we want to make sure everybody heads on over to the EmpireStrykers.com, and that's Strykers with a Y, the EmpireStrykers.com. As of right now, season tickets are still available, and tickets for that 12-12 home opener at Toyota Arena. Look, in my opinion, nicest arena in all of the MASL, that December 12th, 7:05 p.m. Pacific home opener against San Diego Strykers. Tickets still available. Philly, you've been the voice of the Strykers for quite some time now. They haven't opened the season with 2 consecutive wins since the 2021-2022 season. Let me ask you another two-parted question because I like to try and confuse you every now and then. First and foremost, what would it mean for them to open with 2 consecutive wins this season? And more importantly, what would it mean to do it against their heated rival in San Diego?
So we in Empire view it as a hated, so to speak, rival. San Diego, on the other hand, does not. When you go 47-10 against a team lifelong, that's not a rivalry. That's domination. And the only time that the Strykers were truly successful over the course of an entire season was back in 2021 in that shortened COVID year. But what happened? With the Strykers having their worst postseason position, meaning they were in 5th place in 2021. They still ended up beating the then called Ontario Fury, which is what this Empire Strikers were called back then. They beat them in the finals. So there is that stigma, that animosity, but to come out a perfect 2-0 on the road and at home, that obviously is a big confidence booster, and certainly one against San Diego as well. I mean, they have another game down the road a week afterwards against St. Louis, a team that's struggling. Starting off the season red hot matters. But I don't think the Strykers view just the Sockers and beating them as the end goal. The end goal is to have a solid performance, enter the postseason, and make a deep run. And, of course, that run goes through San Diego, but they are just one of now 6 other teams that the Strykers have to pay attention to. But look, I haven't called a win against San Diego since 2023, February. So if that happens, fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to it. Either way, it's going to be competitive.
Okay,
Big crowd expected. I know they're trying to promote to break the attendance record from last season. So yeah, come on out, baby. Friday, 7:05. If not, you could catch it exclusively in the U.S. on CBS Sports Golazo, or you can watch in Spanish on MASL's YouTube channel, or you can watch around the world with a bunch of different outlets, or you can listen live on Fox Sports Radio, 1270 a.m.
Yeah, that's the nice part about the MASL this season, Philly and Tim. We've talked about it quite some time, how while they've only gone down to 8 teams, I don't know if Philly's math checks out that there are 6 other teams. I think there's 7 total.
But I mean, no, there's 8 altogether, but I mean, they only with the Sockers, it's still 6 other teams they have to worry about. Maybe I didn't word it properly, but you know what I mean.
I just like giving you a hard time. But the nice part is there are so many fantastic outlets that we can now watch MASL soccer on. You mentioned the CBS Sports Golazo Network and all of the other fantastic places to tune in for the Strykers. But let me ask you, Tim, they're looking to break the attendance record. There's nothing like being in that building at Toyota Arena with 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 screaming fans. The question is, can they cross that 7,000 attendance mark and break the record for a second straight year?
I think they totally can, because it's a fan-friendly, family-friendly environment. You mentioned it. Toyota Arena is the premier arena in all of MASL, and it's super freeway accessible. You get there right off the 10. It's right there, and you can see it from the freeway. So you know that when you want to leave, you get right out and you get right on. When you want to get in, you get right out and get right in. And so for a family of 4, it is the best value in all of professional sports in all of Southern California. It's a great environment. You can go in, you can have a great time, and the action will blow you away if you've never seen an indoor soccer game in person. Even if you've watched it on TV on any of the outlets that we have, Golazo or anything like that, being in the arena is unlike any other environment.
And after the match, you go all the way down to the pit, the bowl. You get all the autographs you want, get some high fives, shake some hands. Head on over to theempirestrikers.com. And remember, that's Strykers with a Y for tickets to the 12-12 home opener. A team whose home opener is a little bit farther away. Thus, we don't mean, for all of you Angel City supporters out there, we don't mean to rub any salt in any wounds. But we just figured that with Angel City on the shelf for just a couple of months, of course, they've got the Coachella Invitational coming up in a few months. But since there's no actual Angel City Football Club football happening, we figured we would look across the pond and check in on one Alyssa Thompson. And I can hear you all out there right now, the Angel City supporters, going, why? Why do we need to talk about Alyssa? We miss her. It's the Wolverine meme sitting in bed, right? Looking at that picture of Alyssa Thompson. We've all been there. It's Philly and I as Mets fans. It's what we're going to think about Pete Alonso this next season in baseball.
Why did you have to go there? Why did you have to go there?
But look, she's fared quite well in her introduction into the English Women's Soccer League. 12 matches played so far for Chelsea, 9 starts, including each of the last 8 matches, 3 goals, 1 assist, and of course, some of her goals have been pretty big this season. She scored the only goal for Chelsea in their 1-1 draws to both Arsenal and Liverpool. keeping Chelsea within striking distance of Man City in the table. Look, Tim, she's starting to get hot. All 3 goals and the assist have come in her last 6 appearances. She's really started to hit the ground running. What are your thoughts on how? Let me ask you a different question, actually, Tim. How should Angel City supporters feel about watching Chelsea football right now?
They should be actually very proud, in my honest opinion, because the reality is she came in and played very well for Angel City, and that's the reason why Chelsea came and got her, is because of how well she was playing here. And to be able to translate that immediately once she gets into Chelsea and gets into the system, that says a lot about the program that she learned in here at Angel City.
Yeah, look, Alyssa Thompson, a special athlete. We know her sister Giselle still starring for Angel City FC, both of them a product of Harvard Westlake, which is another local high school here in Southern California. An incredible girls high school soccer program nationally. Philly, Alyssa Thompson also assisting on a goal for the U.S. women's national team in a win against Italy. It's been a special start to the career for Alyssa Thompson. But let me ask you something that broke actually just as we were coming on the air. NWSL is now in talks to allow certain players to be paid way above their current salary cap. Let me ask you, is this a direct response to NWSL losing players like Alyssa Thompson to Chelsea? And is this meant to stem the tide?
I mean, I believe so. You truly want to have the best product. You have to pay to get the best players, and the best players deserve to be handsomely rewarded for it. I mean, I'm still, as an Angel City FC supporter, I'm still shocked that the deal could only potentially be as much as $2 million for Alyssa Thompson with whatever add-ons they have and whatnot. I think she went for a minuscule amount of money, considering the amount of talent that she has, even from just a marketing perspective and her own brand. Yeah, we saw MLS do it with they called it the Beckham rule, the designated player rule. And then we obviously saw the amount of talent MLS was able to draw in and how the league was able to be changed. I'm not going to say that a kid, for example, growing up in Southern California wouldn't have an appeal to go to Europe. Ultimately, if you have the opportunity to go to Europe, it's a great experience. I mean, you see a lot of history. Hell, Tim could tell you he's been there more recently than us. But if you truly want the best product, you have to be willing to shell out the most amount of money to bring in the best players. So to me, yeah, I would assume that is a shot at that. And look, Alyssa Thompson, $1 million to go to Chelsea. Oh, I don't know. I still don't know, but I'm glad she's thriving. I mean, she's already got like a fifth of the goals that she had at Angel City already in her time at Chelsea.
And you do have to wonder now with Bob Iger and Willow Bay taking over at Angel City, will that deepen the pockets and change the way that Angel City approaches things? Maybe the next Alyssa Thompson doesn't quite walk out the door. We'll have to see what that means for Angel City as it comes in to 2026. But let's head on over. Tim, you have been waiting / salivating for this segment for the last half hour or so, because there have been some massive roster moves out of Orange County Soccer Club. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 big players re-upping for 2026. And Tim, it starts and ends with their talisman. 11 goals on the season last year for Ethan Zubak. What does it mean to have Big Zoo back in the fold for next year for Orange County?
I think it means everything. To bring back their leader, to bring back the leading goal scorer. He is the glue. He is the straw that spins the drink. Without Ethan Zubak, Orange County would not have even come to a sniff of the playoffs. And that's not just by him scoring 11 goals and being a dominant force up front. It's because of the leadership that he brings to that club. To bring along kids like Mohamedou War, who re-up, to bring in Nicolas Ciota, who's on the defense, to see a leader like Zubak in that realm is just amazing to the entire team. And to have him back makes all the difference in the world.
And a little bit of name recognition, right? I mean, people do know him from his time with the Galaxy. He's a player who has considerable Major League Soccer experience. Philly, a player that came in with absolutely no experience whatsoever would be Mohamedou War. We're talking about a player, Philly, who starred at 2 open tryouts for Orange County Soccer Club. And of course, his speed and relentless then earned him a trial with the club. From there, he kicks the door in, Stone Cold Steve Austin style. He makes the club after 2 open tryouts and a trial, scoring 3 goals on the season, getting himself into the offensive mix. A player like Mohamedou War, Philly, hearing that story, knowing what he went through just to make the team, what does it mean that he has now earned a contract for next year for 2026?
First and foremost, when your name is Mo War, that's just going to strike fear in the heart of any opposing team. But it also goes to show you that the pathway to professionalism is very vast and very open. Unheralded, not even looked at, but yet he found his way into what you said was a good season. Yeah, 3 goals, 17 chances created, 22 successful dribbles. I mean, the fact that he made it on here, it's not a knock on USL or in Orange County, just goes to show you how much talent truly exists and how sometimes it can just slip in between the cracks of the system that's set up here in the United States. For better or for worse, there's probably a ton of Mo Wars out there that could star in USL that are playing, the street soccer somewhere in, like, I don't know, Corona, which actually happens to be where Ethan Zubak's from, by the way. But no, I think it's really cool. It's a heck of a story. Disney-esque, if he could get up to a much higher level. Dare I say, reminiscent of maybe the movie Goal. Obviously, Orange County is not Newcastle or Real Madrid, but a hell of a story and a hell of a year and a great run from open tryouts to do this shoot. You barely see that in like Division I, let alone professional.
Yeah, look, I want to give a couple of shout outs to a couple of defenders that have re-upped with Orange County Soccer Club, Nicholas Iota and Grayson Duty. Grayson Duty, though, looking to come back from injury this last season, 5 starts before he got hurt for the Hermosa Beach native. And Nicholas Iota, it was his first ever professional contract, signing with Orange County in September of 2025. He was man of the match for an effort in June. I know he signed his full contract in 2025, but man of the match for an effort in June for a win over Sacramento. But Tim, the other guy I want to talk to you about real quick, and this will be what closes us out for the Orange County segment, is Liam McKinnon, who really didn't get to hit the ground running. The Golden Boot winner in USL League One in 2024, League One Player of the Year, 16 goals, but couldn't really get it going for Orange County Soccer Club. He's back in the fold in kind of a prove-it year for both Liam McKinnon and Orange County. What do you think about the signing of Liam McKinnon?
I think it's really good. I think it's along the lines of keeping Zubak, because you get a guy that was the Golden Boot winner in League One. He didn't do anything because he got injured early. He got injured in the middle of the season again. But if he can come back and put another 10 goals on the board and match up with Ethan like that, I think the rest of the league needs to take notice and be on notice, because they're not going to be averaging a goal a game this coming year. They're going to be averaging a couple of goals, 2.5 goals a game this year. And Orange County is not going to be kind of scratching at the door. They're going to kick in the top 4 or 5 spots in USL next season.
Yeah, if McKinnon can get going, Ethan Zubak back in the fold, Mohamedou War sprinting down the sideline, it is going to be a fun season at the Champ for Orange County. This has been a fun episode of the fastest paced soccer show in SoCal. This is Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System. Head to the EmpireStrykers.com, get your tickets for the home opener, and we will see you all here on Soccer in 60.